Hi there, Sandy here with another creative video at my YouTube channel and my blog, keepsakecrafts.net. Today I'm going to show you how you can use polymer clay to make your own customized pendant for a necklace or any jewelry really. So this pendant that we're making today is actually based on a button. And it's a lot of fun to dig through old button boxes and see what you can find, but you could use any object that you have. What we're going to do is use the object, the button, to make a mold, and then we'll press our clay into that. So here are a few buttons I've chosen. They're all shank type buttons, although on some the shanks are broken off, but that doesn't matter. We'll be adding our own. So you'll need to choose a button, and then you'll also need some of this material. This is a molding putty. It comes in several different brands. There's Cast and Craft, there's several others. And so what they all are is two parts that you mix together, kind of like an epoxy, but once you mix them together, what you end up with is a flexible silicone mold. And here's one I did earlier. I made a mold of this button. So let me show you how this works. If you want more detail on the molding putty, I did make a video just about how to use it. You just need to pull out equal parts, and you don't have to weigh them or anything to determine if you have equal parts. If you just roll each one in a ball, and they look about the same, that's good enough. And then you want to have your piece ready to mold before you start mixing these, because some do set up fairly quickly. And then you just start mixing, and you keep mixing until there are no streaks of color remaining. It's all one solid color. So once you have it all mixed to a uniform color, just roll it into a smooth ball, place it on a work surface, and then you can press your button into it. Just like that. And then leave your button or your other object in there until it's set. And you'll be able to tell that it's set if you press your fingernail into it and it doesn't leave a dent. Right now that leaves a dent, so it's not ready. And it'll take anywhere from 5 minutes to 30 minutes depending on the brand. And here are a few button molds I made earlier. And once they're cured, everything pops right out of them. That's the nice thing about silicone, is that you don't need any kind of a release agent. So here are molds for a few different buttons. The nice thing about making the mold is it doesn't matter what the color is. Well, all you're going for is the texture and the shape, and actually you can change things about the shape later as well. So here are a few pieces that I made from these molds. Here's the one with the lion's head, and I did this one pretty much the same way as it came out of the mold. But here's one that after I molded it, I used some tools and just kind of shaped the edge a little bit differently for a different look. So once you have your molds all ready, then it's time to use your polymer clay to make some imprints of these pieces. You want a nice, freshly conditioned piece of clay, and make sure before you mold anything that you roll it into a very smooth ball so that there are no creases or lines showing, or those will show up in your project. And if you have a mold like these two that have kind of a deep point, like the lion's nose or this one, just kind of roll your ball into a little bit of a cone. You'd do the same thing if you were doing face molds. You'd want to roll a little bit of a point to get into the nose. And then you just press it right in. Now in order to get the right amount of clay in the mold, we're not going to keep this first impression. Instead we're going to use a clay blade and remove the excess clay. And remove perhaps even a little bit more of that, because there's usually a lip. Now take this piece, roll it into a ball again, and you'll have just the right amount to fill your mold. And what I like to do is then flip it over onto the tile work surface and that flattens it out and gives a nice smooth back. And then I'm going to add my own shank by using a split ring and just press that right into the back. And if it doesn't look like it's anchored in there, you can take a little tiny bit of leftover clay, tuck it in there, and then use a small ball tool to just press it in place so that your shank is securely embedded in the back. And you can take your time and make that nice and smooth. And here are a few others I did just with the shanks on the back. And this one I ended up texturing the entire back. You can do that if you like. But they all have that split ring embedded in there, so it won't be pulling out very easily. Now in these molds, once you put your clay in there, you can pop it out right away and then even shape the clay more like I did on this one. Or if you have something kind of delicate, like this one really didn't want to stay round. When I pulled it out, it turned oval, so I baked it right in the silicone mold. Those will bake just fine at the temperatures you bake polymer clay at. Once you have all your impressions made, you can just go ahead and bake these at the manufacturer's recommended temperature. Usually it's a half an hour for each 1/4 inch, so make sure you do at least that much so your clay pieces are nice and strong. Now once your pieces are all baked and cooled, you can add some finishes to them. Like on this one, I actually painted it with Swelligant brass paint. It's a metal coating, it's actual brass in there, and then went over it with the Swelligant patina, which is what gave it that green. And then I actually went back over the top with more of the brass just to leave the green in the crevices. But there are lots of different ways you can paint these. On this white one with the rose, I used some golden artist's colors. This is the iridescent pearl that I painted 2 coats on there, and you could see what a different look it gives from the original button. And then I went back over with some Gilder's Paste wax applications, and these come in lots of different colors. They come in gold and green and blue. Another thing you can do to bring out the details is apply just some acrylic paint. This was just painted with brown acrylic paint, allowed to sit, and then I wiped off the excess and the paint stayed in the low points. On this one, by contrast, I went over it with my finger and some green Gilder's Paste, and that is accenting the high points. You could certainly do both as well. So you can add all kinds of different finishes. On this one that I painted, I used the green for the leaves and added some gold Gilder's Paste for the flower. So you can finish these and paint them to your heart's content. This is the final piece that I decided to use. This was the floral button. First I painted it with a couple coats of copper Swelligant paints, went over it with a patina, and then went over it with various Gilder's Pastes and some more of the copper paint to bring out the leaves and the flower, and I'm really pleased with this. And now I'm just going to make it into a necklace. By the way, if you have a button that has a direction, make sure that before you do your molding that you take a marker and just mark the top, because you want your shank to be going up and down on your pendant in order for it to hang properly. You can see here's the lion's face, and then there's the split ring. So the first thing we're going to do is make our little tassel dangle, and that's very simple. I simply took some head pins, added a few 6mm bicone beads and several 4mm little gemstone beads to each one, made a loop at the top of each one, and attached them all to a jump ring. And then you're just going to attach the jump ring to that shank that you put on the back of your pendant button. And now you have a tassel hanging down from the bottom of your necklace. And then you can just go ahead and string whatever beads you like. Here I have a mix of coppers and greens. I just strung them on bead stringing wire. I've showed you this many times with a wire protector, a crimp and a crimp cover, a little bit of chain. So I strung half of the necklace onto the beads, and then I'm going to string the wire back through the pendant Make sure that when you string your center beads that there are a few extras, because some of them will be hidden behind your pendant. Go ahead and string on the rest of your beads, finish your end with crimps, and your necklace is done. Here's another look at the project we made today. I hope you like the idea of using polymer clay and molding putty to make your own customized pendants, or any kind of pieces really, for your jewelry. It makes it truly unique and your own. If you like this video, please be sure to give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. There are a couple other videos for you to watch up on the screen. You can follow me on Facebook, Pinterest, Instagram, and on my blog. And be sure to subscribe to this channel so you'll see more videos like this. Happy creating. Bye-bye.